Well, if you feel like you are never going to be able to retire, this episode is for you. Welcome to Fully Alive with Jeff Capusta. Today, I am joined by my longtime friend, Aaron Talley. Aaron, good to have you on the show.
Man, thanks for having me. This is a true honor and a privilege, buddy.
Absolutely. So Aaron is a senior financial advisor with Wells Fargo. Basically, what you do is you help people strategically win with their money through investing. So honored to have you. For those who don't know you, though, why should we listen to you when it comes to something so valuable as our money?
You know, that's a great question. I love and I hate these types of questions, but I feel like they should probably be asked more frequently because oftentimes we let people speak into our lives who have no business doing so. So here's what I would say. For me, I have just been blessed to be in this career. I got started in the career. I didn't deserve to be in this career, but God opened a door. I went through it. Over 20 years, I've been doing this, helped, I don't even know how many people figure out finances, debt, uh, investments, retirement, putting kids through college, big purchases, you name it. We've done it. And I would say this very humbly, we've been recognized 4 times by a national publication. And so it's always nice, as the Bible says, when other people praise you rather than you got to do it yourself. So
Well, I'm grateful for you. And I wanted you on the show because what I want us to talk about is one of the areas that I feel like my wife and I got dead wrong. And it has to do with investing. And the more people I talk to, I know we're not alone with that. Part of living fully alive is becoming financially free. And so I know that when I talk to people, at least in my own story, it feels like we went from not making enough money to invest, is what we told ourselves, to one day we look up and we feel like we don't have enough time. And so it's almost like it's too late. And so I wanted to sit down and talk with you so that we can be a help to a lot of the folks that I've had conversations with. You know, the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7, the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. So that's why you're here. I'm hoping that together, with your insight and your 20 years experience, and quite honestly, my wife and I sat down with you. It's now been a couple years to start mapping out a strategy for us, and that was incredibly helpful. But I wanted you to come in to clear up some confusion, to give some time-sensitive next steps,
sure.
and to help dodge some of the pitfalls that are along the way. So let's start with to clear up a little bit of confusion, okay? All right, so most of us are familiar with a savings account, probably have that. It's at our bank. There's saving and then there's investing. Give me the difference. What's the difference? Let's pretend I don't. Talk to me like I'm a fifth grader.
Like we're like anytime other than now. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, I love you. Thanks again for letting me be on here with you. But yeah, so I mean, when you're talking about saving and investing, saving is just rudimentary, right? It's like the basic principle for emergency money. Investing is anything that you're going to do long term. So in other words, today money versus tomorrow money. That's the most
So real
basic
quick,
way I
let's
know how to
say
describe it.
Dave Ramsey talks about having, let's say $2,000
Sure.
emergency fund.
Yep.
That's not an investment.
No.
That's a savings.
Yeah.
I need access to that and I need it quickly.
Yeah. So, I mean, like if you go down the rabbit hole, and we'll try not to do this too much today so people can follow along, but essentially saving accounts are designed to keep up with the pace of inflation. Oftentimes they don't do that though. If you look at the environment we're in right now, currently, you're earning less on a savings account than inflation is going up. Look at the price of eggs. Look at all these different things that we've been talking about in the news. You're not keeping up with that pace.
Okay.
So in essence, you're losing money.
So I hear people say, talk about saving for retirement.
Right.
Give me an example, like different accounts, or what are they talking about?
Yes. So, I mean, there's all different types of accounts. So you can get really far in the weeds on this one. And this is where I think a lot of people get overwhelmed because there's, 403Bs, 401Ks, 457s. I mean, you name it. There's all IRAs. There's all these different types of accounts. Ultimately, all we're talking about there is it's sheltered from taxes.
Okay.
So when you put that money away, you're putting it away, you're getting a tax deduction, or it's going in tax-free essentially, or tax-deferred, I should say, is a better way to say that. And it's like, think about it like an umbrella. Anything under the umbrella is not getting wet, right? From taxes. The taxes would be the rain, it's coming down on top of the umbrella, but it's under the umbrella, so it's being sheltered. Well, eventually you got to take that money out, and some of it, because the government wants to get paid.
Right, they're going to get there.
So you're going to take it out at some point, but then you're taking it out over time. And the idea is I'm taking it out later in my life when I'm in a lower tax bracket. When I'm not making as much money, I'm not working anymore, I'm not bringing home the bacon. And so now I need to pay myself. And so I'm doing that, but I'm doing it hopefully at a lower bracket.
Okay, so there's a tax benefit to it.
Correct.
There's hopefully, if they're wise investments, there's an increase that happens over time.
Hopefully.
Okay, so because I think that's one of the things that was always really, really confusing to me is, I hear people talk about my 401k, my 403b, my Roth this, and I'm not a smart man. you know, I've never been accused of being, a genius. And so it was always real confusing to me. So for me, the easiest thing was just stick it, in a savings account, or I just put it under my mattress. Some people are like, well, I don't know that I trust the system. And so I know that we think it's Einstein that says that compounding interest,
Einstein or Buffett, one of them said it.
one of them said it, says compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Help me just, okay, for a moment, help me understand when I put money away, give me that, just simplify it for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, so the basic, easiest way to do this, and anybody can do this. So, you don't have to have a PhD in finance to be able to figure this one out. So, you take whatever interest rate that you hope to earn 2%, 10%, 12%, whatever the number is, 20%, and you divide it by 72. It's called the rule of 72. It's one of the easiest equations you can do in finance because you take that number, divide it by 72, and that number that it gives you will be how long it takes for your money to double. And so compounding interest is a beautiful thing because think about it like this. Just do simple math. 10%. You got $100 a year later at a 10% rate of return. Now you have 110.
Okay. Easy enough. I can do that.
A year later, you don't have 200 or 120 rather, right?
Right.
Now you have 121
Gotcha. Okay.
because the compounding interest continues to grow.
So in the beginning, it feels like, what's the point? But it's sort of the snowball effect. Or I've heard it said, for those who've ever bought a house and they show you the amortization schedule, and you buy a, let's say, $500,000 house, but by the end of 30 years, you're paying in the, goodness, 800. So it's compounding interest in the opposite.
In the opposite direction.
Okay. So
That's exactly right.
that's helpful. That's helpful. So one of the things that I wanted to ask our viewers of Fully Alive, I went online and I asked them, what are some questions that you've got around investing? And so I just want to ask you your quick thoughts. Here's one of the first questions. I think this is where a lot of people are at. They said, I'm always curious about trying to figure out how much risk is okay when investing. And to put in perspective, this is from somebody that is in their mid to low 20s, just in perspective. So how do we figure that out?
Well, that's a common question that you get, especially in my field, right? So when someone comes in, regardless of what age they are, they could be in their 80s, their 60s, their 50s, their 20s, it doesn't really matter. And that's always kind of the $1,000,000 question. The reason why I say that is because you're trying to, what they're asking there is how much money do I put in the market, or how much money in the market do I take risk, and what market do I invest in? Because there's all different types. We won't go down that rabbit hole today, but you get the concept. Well, the idea there, right, is that if you're putting it under your mattress or you're just putting it in a savings account, you're not making any money, right? Ideally, what you're looking at is you want that money to grow over time. And just to put that in perspective, I looked it up. Investopedia had it since 1957, the S&P 500, which the S&P 500 is 500 of the largest companies in the country. So everybody knows these names: Microsoft, Apple, I mean, NVIDIA, you name it. These are in the S&P 500, right? We all know the names. In the S&P 500, since 1957, the average rate of return was 10.33%.
Okay.
That's money doubling faster than every 8 years.
Okay. So now let me put a pin in that, because when I'm watching the news,
Yep.
and I'm watching this, it's like, oh my goodness, do I pull everything out? And then I'll check my app to see what my retirement's at, and it's down. And what do I do? Is the world ending? You would say that the track record shows,
Yeah.
we're fine.
Absolutely.
So don't ride the roller coaster. Just stay.
Yeah, and so for the younger person, which I'm sure is very curious about all this, right? And here's what I would say to them. Basically, what you're trying to do is what's called dollar cost averaging. By dollar cost averaging, what you're doing is you're buying in sequentially over time. And what you're doing is every month you're putting $100, $200, $50, $1,000, $10,000, whatever your number is. That's relative to the individual. But what you're doing is you're just putting money in. By putting money in, it's now growing, and then it's compounding. By dollar cost averaging, you have to realize you are on the roller coaster, but sometimes you're buying at a high, sometimes you're buying at the low. And by doing that, though, it's an amazing effect. I mean, you can look at any graph, any chart from people who have done that over time. I mean, this is how people get wealthy.
I got you. One more question from the internets. So this one talks about, I guess it's a little bit similar, but it's the biggest challenge is where to even start and developing the discipline to take that financial risk. And I'm going to get into some of that even as we get started. So whoever asked that, just hang tight. One other question is, seeing the mountain of debt and feeling discouraged daily. But so there is a tension between, I know a lot of us are like, we're digging out of debt and then we're trying to plan for later. And I know that debt's not necessarily why we're here talking, but can you give me a little bit, if I told you I'm in this scenario, how would you coach me? Because obviously I got to pay the debt, but would like to retire someday.
Yeah, that's very real. So here's some of the pitfalls that I see people get into. Sometimes people are so focused on retiring debt. Not what I mean by that is my mortgage or my car note or whatever. And sometimes you should retire that, depending on what the interest rate is, right? If you're looking at, I just told you, 1957, the average rate of return over that period of time, according to Investopedia, is 10.33%. Well, if your car note's 11, you should focus on the car note before you start investing. If your car note is at 1.5%, well, 10% is a whole lot more than 1.5. So I would say focus on continuing to make your payment to pay the car off, of course. But at the same time, don't, as the old saying goes, don't cut your nose off to spite your face. And so
Is that a real saying?
that
People
is a
say
real,
that?
I mean,
All right. All right.
I grew up with that saying. So if not, then we just educated, your listeners. So anyway, but that's to me, that's one of those things that I see people do. Now, at the same time, if you have credit card debt, you need to retire that. And that's when I would say, hey, look back at the Dave Ramsey snowball effect. Look at those types of things. There's really good practical application and advice that those folks give, far more qualified in that arena, than I am.
Well, and I would add, not that my opinion really matters here, as someone who dug out of debt. And so a part of me thinks it's like even developing that reflex, that muscle, and getting in the habit of doing it while we started digging out of our debt.
Well, I can give you a story to that. I mean, reality is, so my kid's college fund, right? I've got an 18-year-old. He just graduated years ago. I'm like, I'm a financial advisor. I should have a college fund for my kid, right? I mean, that just makes sense. So I opened one, put a couple $1,000s in it or whatever the number was and said, oh, I got it. So we'll just keep doing this now. And I said, every time I have extra money,
Mhm.
I'll just put some in it. Well, that thing went for like years and I never added any money to it. And I look at it one day and I'm like, I am a failure as a father, as a guy who does this as his career. So then all of a sudden what I did, and it's exactly what you just said, I just automated it.
Right.
I mean, you talk about this in church, we talk about it with tithing, but it's so true because the reality is that how am I going to sit here knowing what I do for a living? And then, I mean, genuinely, I feel like I was failing my kids.
Well, it's only fitting. They say that the mechanics' cars are always broke, the cobbler's
Yeah, no.
kids don't have shoes, the preacher's kids are running wild, and the financial
Yeah,
advisor's
well,
kids.
you broke that mold, I think, according with your kids, and so I'm trying to do the same on my end.
So, all right. So, well, I appreciate you clearing up, the savings, investing, and even answering some of our questions from some of my viewers. Here's where I want us to talk about is things that I wish someone had told me.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Again, I'm 49 now, and if I could be talking to 20 something Jeff.
Sure.
So I'm going to give you scenarios, and I want you just, if you were advising me now, I would, quick disclaimer for all of you that are out there, like we don't own a crystal ball. And even if we did, we can't predict the market. We can't predict the future, but based on track record, trajectory, we can make assumptions and you can advise, which is what you do. So scenario one, okay, let's just say I'm fresh out of college, college graduate. I've landed my first full-time job. Let's just say I'm making $45,000 a year. I want to retire someday. Where would you advise me to look to start to set up? Is there a type of an account? And I know some employers have a matching program, some do not. So maybe speak to both of those scenarios.
Yeah, and let me just kind of say this. Look, whenever you're making decisions, you should always consider the professional that is their field. So, if we talk about taxes, we talk about this, we talk about you need to consider sitting down with your CPA or your accountant or somebody who knows more than me about accounting. You need to make sure that you've got your ducks in a row. And that's one of the biggest things I would say to folks is that, look, we can talk about generalities, but get in the room with somebody who knows more than you do. I mean, that's essentially what you did. You came to me years ago and we just began the conversation and, here we are today. And so that's where it starts. And I would encourage any of your viewers to start there. A lot of times people, I think, get sidetracked by the idea of like, oh, well, I don't have enough or what about that person or whatever. If you're a younger individual, there are tons of younger financial advisors who are trying to build their practice and they would more than welcome somebody with a $25,000, $10,000 investment startup to get that going, right? A startup account. And so that's my best advice that I know how to give out of the gate is say, find somebody who's qualified to speak into your life and to help you along the journey. If you have more, unless you're just really comfortable and you know that new startup really well, maybe look for a more seasoned advisor who's done this, been through that, been there, done that kind of thing. So what I would say to answer your question was this. So for the 20-year-old, start. It is unbelievable when you look back at graphs. So like part of my job, believe it or not, is you have to look back at history. History is like the greatest teacher. The reason why, the recession happened in '08 and '09 had all the same makings, according to the research that I've seen, was out of the Great Depression. It looked identical. Banks overlent, and so all of a sudden you had this cataclysmic shutdown in finance, which then we all felt in 2008 and 2009 if you were alive during that period of time. So the biggest thing that you do is start. Start somewhere, because the graph, when you look back over that period of time, it's unbelievable. And everybody who went through that period of time, '08 and '09, has made that back or should have made that back and more. At least I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for my clients. But the biggest thing is to start. And your dollar cost averaging, like we talked about earlier, whatever it is, if it's $10 a month, start putting away $10 a month. Start putting away $20 a month. If you have a 401k at your job, that is one of the easiest things to put away to, especially if they match. It blows my mind that people say, here's 3%, 6% of free money.
Right.
Like, I mean, I don't know anybody in the world who, if you saw a $100 bill on the street, you would just be like, I'll leave that for the next guy. Right. I mean, I'm bending over, I'm picking that thing up. I'm like,
Yeah.
I want that. But yet at the same time, we do this with our money all the time. It genuinely blows my
Well,
mind.
and I appreciate you saying that, because there are a lot of employers trying to make it advantageous to be on that, on that team, and so they're doing a matching. So you'd say
100%.
if you just started a job and they do a match, do not pass go. Like immediately set this up as soon as possible. Okay, really quickly. So let's say I just started the same scenario. There's no 401k. I'm Googling retirement. Do I set up my own 401k? Do I go to, obviously there's there's other, Wells Fargo, there's other companies. Like, what am I starting a 401k? Is that what I'm doing?
So uh, to answer that question, no, you're not starting a 401k because that's a company plan.
All right, great to know.
So IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. That's where we get the term IRA. So
Who is Roth?
So Roth, that's where I was getting ready to go with this. So Roth IRA is different. So for the new college student, graduate, whatever, who's just gotten their first job, whatever the case might be, or whatever age you could be at, if you're starting your journey, if you're making less, and this is where you got to get with your CPA because there's a cap on this, but if you're making below that cap, in my personal opinion, the Roth IRA is your best friend. Because the Roth IRA goes like this. You're going to put the money in after taxes. So you're going to pay the taxes like normal. You're going to put this into the Roth IRA, but here's the trick with the Roth. The Roth grows tax deferred, and when you take it out of retirement is tax free. You talk about, I mean, rubbing the genie and
See, and that's something that like nobody said that to me.
Right.
They just said you need to be investing for retirement. Okay, cool, thank you.
Right.
But just that simple like Roth IRA,
Huge.
set it up,
Absolutely huge.
set it and forget it,
Yeah.
automate it.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, all right.
And even if you do something as simple as invest in an S&P 500 index fund with, no fees or anything or very little fees, I should say, because everything has a fee, it seems like. But it's really that simple. And there are so many companies out there that will help you do this. Wells, Vanguard, you name it. Any company out there can help you set these things up and get these in place.
No, that's helpful. All right, so let me give you a scenario number 2. All right, good news. I'm now married. Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We are a 2-income household. We're bringing in about $90,000 a year. Does anything change?
So again, need to check with the accountant because depending on taxes, it may, right? And they're going to advise you based on your personal specific scenario. But given this scenario you just gave, in my mind, no, I think now you have 2 Roth IRAs.
Just continue.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing, is starting and then continuing. And if you automate it, just like we're talking about my kid's college fund, oddly enough, when I made it a bill to myself, I never missed a payment, right? I never missed a payment. I put away to my kid's college, and now, my oldest going away is fully funded in his college plan for where he's going to school. It's just that simple.
Yes. Well, I know one of the mistakes my wife and I made is as we started making more money, our budget ate it up.
Yep.
Like, oh, let's put a little more into, going out to eat. Let's put a little more into groceries. Let's put a little more into Christmas. We never stopped and thought, let's put a little more into retirement.
Right.
And so
You're not alone in that, by the way.
well, I think it's just there's no fun in it. It's like, do I go buy this new car or do I put a little more money?
Yeah, it's like putting tires on your car. There's no fun in it.
Well, and it's hard for me. You live in this world. It's hard for me to wrap my head around if I increase my retirement by $100 a month,
Yeah.
I'm fast tracking.
Yeah.
I just feel like I just lost $100 a month. I didn't. I invested. I won't see it for a while. My future self will thank me.
Well, I think there's what you're saying, and I think there's a beautiful part of this future generation that has kind of made folks, I don't know, our age, at least in my opinion, more aware of is there is this dynamic of, I mean, I've had people that I've worked for or worked with who didn't spend a dime. And it's kind of miserable, like, not gonna lie. I mean, like, they're driving around in crappy cars and, I mean, there's not a lot of enjoyment, and they've worked their whole life, and they're not going anywhere, doing anything, or buying anything. And so at that point, you kinda ask the question, well, like, well, I mean, why?
Right.
What are you doing? But then there's this other dynamic where you have people who just are spending hand over
Oh,
fist.
for sure.
And so for me, I get the dynamic, and I feel like this generation, the younger generation maybe has asked that question like, "Well, I mean, I wanna enjoy, YOLO," It's like, I wanna enjoy because you only live once. While I get that, you still, I think, have to be cognizant and aware that, yes, you wanna enjoy today, but tomorrow, unless God comes
Right.
back, is probably coming too, and so we need to be aware.
I think you're right. Okay, so we're married. It's great. And surprise, we just had our first baby. You talked about setting up a college
Congratulations.
fund. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Proud new parents.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky
I,
Bobby.
yeah. Good Lord, no more kids. Okay. It's like the finish line is right there. Hypothetically speaking, so we've had a kid. We're sleep deprived, and you talked about college fund, and I'm thinking about the rising cost of college tuition. What is that account, and what should I what do I set up right away?
I've seen people do all kinds of different things. You can do, well, I'm just going to throw out some terms. Whether people want to know about them or not, they can Google them and look into them. But, UTMAs, UGMAs, depending on where you live.
Did you say
You,
UGMA?
yeah, UGMA, Uniform Gifts to Minors Act. So, like, yeah, so they all stand for something. We love acronyms in my business. Like being in the military is very familiar. Uh, but so you can do 529 plans. You can just do custodial accounts. You can do all different types of accounts for kids, grandkids, whatever you want to do to help fund that or fully fund that. Um, that's one of the areas I will say that probably blows me away the most is how underfunded college tuition is for most young adults getting ready to go to school.
Well, that's exactly where we have been. So I told you guys, I want you to learn from my mistakes. Those of you with little ones, they do
That's
grow up.
amazing. They do grow up.
They do grow up, and college gets more and more expensive. And get you an UGMA or a
No, don't
no, don't do an
don't
UGMA. Don't listen to my advice.
listen to it.
Tell me the name
Oh.
of the accounts again, though. You
No,
said it
so I
was
mean, the most common is a 529,
that's
but
the
I've
one.
seen, but
Get you
I've
a
s-
529.
that's the most common. That's what I have. I'll put it like that. So the reason why you do a 529, or the reason why I like a 529, I'll say it that way, is because when you put the money in, it's more like that Roth situation. So the money is taxed, but it will grow tax deferred. If it's taken out for education, it remains tax free. And so for me, that's a win-win.
Okay.
Anything I don't have to pay taxes on, again, let's go.
What if I create a 529 for my kidney doesn't go off to college?
Yeah, so
Now
great
what?
so great question. So my understanding of 529s, and we don't do like a ton of these, so you do your research, do your homework. But so for me, my understanding of those is they're very, very open. In other words, what I mean by that is you can change the beneficiary on it who receives it. So let's say you got one kid who decides they want to go to lineman school, which is in this area. Well, okay, that still costs something, so that counts. It's a trade school, right? As far as I know. And then let's say you got another one who wants to go to Harvard or somewhere else, right? So some Ivy League college. Well, okay, great. You can then take whatever was it used for this one and then make this the beneficiary. So for both of those.
I
So
got you.
it's very flexible. If you yourself, you know what I mean? I mean, I know you love to cook. Maybe you want to go back to culinary school. You can make yourself the beneficiary.
Yeah, I'm about to throw in the towel on this job that I've got. I'm sick of it. Just kidding. I'm not. I love you guys. Love what I do. All right. Last scenario. I think there's a lot of folks find themselves in this place. I'm 40 years old. I'm just starting to put away for retirement. Is there any hope? And if so, how aggressive do I need to be?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think a lot of people find themselves in this boat. And what I would say is, don't get overwhelmed by the seeming mountain in front of you, but just take one step at a time. You know how to eat an elephant one bite at a time. Same concept. If you focus on the finish line of a marathon, you're probably never going to get started in the first place. You know all about that. So, you know, here's what I would tell you. I would say again, start as aggressive as you can be. And here's what I would say is also the good news. I had a client one time. This was a great story. Had kids, and came to me and did not have, even in my opinion, remotely enough to retire. And we just had a very serious, frank conversation, which I tend to do with folks because I feel like you just tell people the truth and let them figure it out, and they will, with help. And so I just told him, I was like, we need to really ramp this up. He was in his 50s and, had done some, but it certainly wasn't enough. That man, I mean, it was like somebody lit a fire under him when he realized that he could actually reach his end goal. He's done it, still a client today, still retired, still living the dream, I mean, and so it's one of those things where you'd be amazed at what you'll save once the kids are out of the house. You'll be amazed at what those things look like. And so, but again, you don't wait till then to start.
Right.
The sooner you start.
Yep. Well, and the reality is that that scenario is much closer to my wife and I. I mean, our kids are out of the house now. We're pumping as much as we can into retirement. There is a fast tracking. We're not giving up. I wish we had started sooner, and I think that's probably, for those of you that are like, I wish I had started sooner. Well, look, you can't. Okay, you can start where you are. Okay,
I heard
so
a wise saying one time says you can't go back and start over, but you can start today for a new end.
it's great. They say the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago, second best time today. Hey, pitfalls. Let's wrap up by talking about just some give me a few common mistakes that you see, and I know you could write a book on this, so a couple of them that because there's that person that's hearing this going, yeah, yeah, yeah. Give me a few of the pitfalls.
Yeah, so I would say one of the biggest ones is overspending.
Okay.
That's obvious, I think. The second one is just people are very uneducated. It's not a sexy topic. It's not real exciting a lot of times unless you're in the profession or in the field or you really enjoy it, which some people do. So people just don't learn about it. You want to blow your mind? In my opinion, read The Millionaire Next Door. That book was written years ago, and literally, I remember listening to it on audio as I'm driving to Charlotte to go to a conference. And as I'm there, I'm listening to this guy who studies millionaires for a living. And this was in the 80s, I believe, when he wrote it. Thomas Stanley is the author. And he's literally just talking about everyday millionaires, and he's going through all of their likes and dislikes and do they drive Porsches and Lamborghinis? Because I mean, that's what we all think they drive, right? We all think that they're just out there living it up and making it hand over fist. And he's talking about everyday average millionaires, and he's talking about teachers and just people who are just like you and me, who have done normal jobs but finished very well. And it was absolutely incredible because as I'm going through it, I'm literally thinking about every client that I have. And this was a long time ago, but I'm literally thinking about every client I have that has over $1 million with me. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, he does live that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, she does live that way. Yeah, that is what they drive. Yeah, that is how they act. I mean, it was mind blowing. So I think a lot of times people are just very uneducated. And so we just assume whatever culture tells us is what reality is. Couldn't be further from the truth. So, and then the other thing is we just don't start. I would say those are the three biggest.
Well, I remember when my wife and I sat down with you, you asked us to describe to you what we envisioned for our retirement. And you helped us frame up a vision for what will be. And obviously, scripture talks about where there's no vision, the people cast off restraint, they perish. I think that is a good descriptor of how a lot of people live their life, myself included. I want it now. And gaining that vision for what do I want down the road has changed everything. And I don't feel like I'm losing money, I'm investing money. And so I'm grateful for your insight, your wisdom, help steer me in a direction. I know nothing about any of this, and so you've been a great resource to me. Let me just ask you one last question I like to ask for all my guests that join me here on Fully Live, and it's simply this: what does it mean to you, Aaron Talley, to live fully alive?
Man, I believe that being fully alive is understanding that God has a purpose and a plan for all of our lives, that He wants to speak to us in a way that only He can. And so, whether that's in your finances, whether that's in ministry, whatever it is, and I believe, man, just tapping into that and being aware of how much He truly loves you and cares about you and wants a relationship with you, there is no better place to be more fully alive than in His presence.
I love it. Well, there you heard it, senior financial advisor. Thank you so much for being with us today, on Fully Alive.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.